You are listening to the Spiritual Sisters podcast. This is Gabrielle Celeste, and I'm tired. Nichole.
Hey, Brianna's gonna
I know, it
edit
was my
this and
thought.
she's gonna be like, she fucking started the episode with the
I did it on purpose, actually. Literally, right now when we
God,
were setting up, I was like, I'm going to do it on purpose. Let's just see if Nichole or Brianna
why?
says something. Just
Why are you
because.
like that? You're so, what's the word?
Why are you like that?
Oh fuck, what's the word I'm thinking of?
Why are you
You're so
like that?
petty.
You know what? I
Fucking
really am.
petty LaBelle.
I
Petty
was
LaBelle.
thinking, I was driving over here and I've been like, I had I guess we're starting with my check-in. I had a reading recently with an author that agreed to come on our podcast, which I'm so fucking excited about. And she said you have a lot of like, so everyone has certain elements that are more active or underactive in their systems, right? It's kind of like in Chinese astrology where you have like air, fire, water, earth, and all of that. And she's like, you have a lot of fire active in your system, and that's leading to like inflammation, right? And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I've had like these weird bumps on my feet since for like a year. And I was on the way here and I was like, the way that this is showing up in my mind, I was like, I could give Taylor Swift a run for her money, not literally because she's a billionaire, with respect to
What?
like how petty she
How
is.
are you? Is she petty? No,
She's
I
petty
think you're
as
like the
fuck.
queen of petty.
She's pretty petty. She's pretty
Mm,
petty.
I don't know. Petty Betty. Anyway,
Petty Betty. Ooh, coin that one too.
Petty Betty LaBelle. Okay, guys. Hey,
Um,
happy. Actually, not happy.
not happy. What?
No, I was gonna say happy almost
End of
anniversary
year.
of
Oh,
JFK's assassination, but it's not happy. It is though a milestone because tomorrow, so today on the day of this recording, not the recording, sorry, on the day of this episode drop, it is November 21st, 2023. November 22nd, 1963 is the date that JFK was assassinated. So what is that? 60 years?
yeah, that's a Saturn cycle.
That's crazy. 60
It is.
years and we're still fascinated with it.
I asked Dad because there's always like some events where I'm just like, I wonder if he like remembers, because he's been around for some time now,
Mhm.
right? And he's like, yeah, I remember. I asked him just now right before we started recording. I was like, where were you? What was going on? He's like, I was in elementary school and I was coming back from recess. And it was like one of the
Everybody was
saddest
crying
moments.
probably. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the saddest moments in American history. And
Yeah.
there's an astrological reason for that.
And I'm sure you're going to tell us about it.
I sure am.
This is what we're doing today. Okay, let's jump in because I think we have a lot to cover. So let's not waste time like we normally do.
Okay.
If you're
Okay.
if you're listening to this and if you want to watch along, we're gonna be sharing the screen of the chart that Gabby's going to be reviewing, so that might make it a little bit easier. If not, if you're not able to watch it on YouTube, we'll actually probably share the chart also on social media. So if you want to follow along, I know for me that's helpful. So if it's helpful for anybody else, then go ahead and do that. So let's jump in and let me share.
Okay, so I'm driving and you are what, Nichole? That was
I
your
don't know.
role.
I haven't come up with anything. This brain is not working much lately. It's fine.
Okay.
All you get from me today
Okay.
is Petty Betty. That's it.
Petty Betty. That's me. Hi.
Oh my gosh, like
I'm a bubble.
Brianna. Like Brianna Betty.
Brianna Betty. Yeah. Brianna Betty. I love it.
That was hilarious.
Okay. So guys, for those of you on YouTube, and we're going to post a picture of this on socials as well so you get a visual idea of what we're looking at and explaining. We are looking at JFK's death chart. So I wanted to say primarily that I don't do death charts in my practice and I don't do political astrology, but I know the
But the
foundations of
Kennedys.
each. But the Kennedys. I know the foundations of each, so we're speaking to that perspective today. And I also wanted to share that we're not going to get into all of the placements. We're going to look at the main placements, meaning the planetary influences within the houses of the chart, as well as what they were doing individually and with respect to each other via the aspects in the chart. But I also actually wanted to ask you a question, Nichole. Did you know that events can actually have a birth chart as well, like marriages, deaths, starts of businesses?
I did not prior to you starting this work, but since you started this work, I am now aware that there is a chart for everything because you always want to make a chart for everything. Even when I got married, I think you were wanting to figure out what time did you guys say I do, or what time was it
Mm-hmm.
official, because you wanted to cast a chart for that. And I know that there's a chart for businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think now I have more of an understanding
Mm-hmm.
that there's a chart for everything, including death.
Yeah, your business is a Scorpio because you can't get away from them, people
Love
and all.
them, apparently.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I did remember asking about your wedding chart, and that was under an eclipse as well. So it's your business chart. Wow, I just put that together. And we,
Mm.
yeah, and I remember asking for your husband's time of birth, which I just recently got, and I have it
Hmm.
on my spreadsheet where I have everyone's information saved. So I have to go look at that a little bit more thoroughly. But yeah, anyways, everything has a birth chart, guys. So astrology is just a never ending rabbit hole. But you can ask yourself after you listen to my take on the astrology if this was fated, if this happened under, I don't know, like a conspiracy theory, conspiracy effort of sorts, or maybe it was a little bit of both. I don't know. I
Let us know also, guys, if you want us to cover the curse of JFK. I think we'll probably do it even if you don't want us to, because we're fascinated with the Kennedys and everything that goes along with them, including the Kennedy curse. But let us know if that's something that you guys are into. Actually, we're going to do it anyway. Let us know or don't. We're going to do what we want.
yeah, pretty much.
Sorry. Sorry, guys.
So I do want to add another disclaimer and say that maybe he wasn't necessarily doomed to die per the heavens, but any attempted assassinations on this day would have been, I mean, anything in general, right? Especially if you have, like, say, the same birthday or a very similar birthday to JFK, they would have been successful. And we're going to basically prove as to why that is the case via the death chart.
What's his birthday?
I knew you were going to ask me that and I didn't pull it up. Give me a second.
Okay, I'll pull it up. You start talking.
Okay.
Okay.
I would love to know his big three. Oops. Okay. So JFK death chart. He officially died because, Nichole, do you know how he died? In which place he
Duh.
was struck? Okay, tell me.
May 29th, 1917. That would make him a Gemini.
Gemini. That makes sense.
Yeah, everybody does. Okay.
Okay.
Wait. I got
Share.
his sun. I got his sun and
Mhm.
his moon. You want his sun and his moon?
I do.
Okay. Oh, okay. So his sun is Gemini.
Mhm.
His moon is Virgo. What is
Mm.
AS? His
Ascendant, rising.
ascendant rising
Mhm.
is Libra. And his MC, that's midheaven? Or what
Yes.
is that?
Yeah, that's his midheaven. Good job.
Cancer.
A Cancer.
And
Oh, that makes sense.
he's a fire snake in astrology.
Okay.
And in numerology, he's a birth path 7.
Oh, okay. Well, do you know what I think was interesting? Because his midheaven was in Cancer. In the
Hmm.
last episode that we just did, we talked about midheavens being very significant for presidents. And the
Mm-hmm.
United States legit is a Cancer sun. So,
Of course it is. So fucking moody.
what's your big three, Nichole?
Cancer, Sun, Aquarius,
Every time.
rising, and
Yes.
Sagittarius, moon.
Yay, 2 for 2. Okay,
Yay!
cool.
All right.
All right. So he died on November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas, Texas at 12:30 p.m. So that is the information that we use to cast this chart that we're looking at. However, he wasn't officially pronounced dead until 1 p.m. But the thing is, with death charts, it's I mean, if you have the exact moment of death, which we have because he was struck in the head, then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to use that time as opposed to like what's actually on the death certificate.
I wonder what was on the death certificate. I wonder what time they called it. I mean,
They said
eh,
1.
I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if when he was taken to the hospital, if his heart was still beating. Because I mean,
Oh my
right,
gosh, that's morbid.
it's not morbid, but because right, I mean that's what they're probably going by, right? Like, is there still heartbeat? Is there still a pulse? So I wonder, with him being shot in the head, if he
Hmm.
still had a pulse when they took him. Like, I just wonder, right? Like, or was it? I don't know. Was it
That's
at the moment of impact?
I didn't even know that was a possibility. I'm like,
I
why
don't. I
isn't
don't
that
either.
just
I'm
oh,
clearly
okay.
not a doctor. We got any doctors that listen? Hey, nurses, Katie and Kelly, let us know.
Let us know.
Hey,
Okay.
ladies.
So again, pronounced officially dead at 1 p.m., but like he died upon gun impact because you do not survive that literally.
No.
And he died under a Scorpio in Scorpio season, under the Scorpio sun, which quite literally is the season of death in the zodiac.
I thought November 22nd is Sagittarius, no?
It depends on where it's at in the sky because the way that we're transiting around the sun. But if you look at the chart, which is fantastic that we have this, do you see in that house where it says number 9?
Oh, sun
And do
sign.
you
Well, and it
see
also says sun sign Scorpio
sun and
too.
it says 29? What did we reference back in the last episode, Nichole? This is a quiz. I know you don't like being quizzed, but we did talk about some of these points in this last episode we just did prior to this one. So go take a listen, guys. And in astrology, numbers 0, 1, and 29 are of extreme significance. And if you see that sun under house 9, Nichole, where it says 29 degrees Scorpio sun, that is a very important, almost heightened and emphasized sun to die
Which
under.
is house 9.
Do you see that little X in the middle, that little circle?
Oh, okay. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Found
Yeah.
it.
Yep. And then do you see
Oh,
that?
good to know. I'm always like, why don't they have fucking numbers? So I know, but they do.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. All right. So I also want to say in any chart, I don't know if this makes a difference amongst the different types of astrological systems, but in the system that I study, because it's so specific, which is Placidus, 4 to 10 minutes is going to make a difference in timing, because that's going to influence the exactness of the chart, especially the rising sign. So they change every 4 to 10 minutes. So that's why, like twins, depending on when they're born, that's why it's so important
Mm-hmm.
as to what time, they were actually born at. When you're looking at this chart, Nichole, and in a
Mm-hmm.
chart in general, but in a death chart,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to look to a few key points. And those significant key points are the big 3. So it's going to, what are the big 3? What are a big 3? I'm always asking you what
Sun,
yours are.
moon, and rising.
Yes, correct. Okay, awesome. Yay, 3 for 3. Okay, so everything is important in astrology. Every
Mm-hmm.
number, so the numbers that you see by the planets that we're looking at in the chart, every line that those planets are making to one another, every house, every sign, everything has meaning. So it
Mm-hmm.
really just depends on like what you're looking at and how far you're going in and what purpose of the chart you're looking at it for and what you're hoping to get out of it. But in this case, we're looking at his Scorpio sun in the death chart, the Aquarius
And that
moon,
is
and
house
Aquarius
what?
rising. His Scorpio sun is in house 9.
House 9. Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. So where's the moon? Another quiz.
12th house.
Yep, and it's conjunct, close enough for me to consider. Actually, I wouldn't consider that in a conjunction, but it's on top of the rising sign, which is also an Aquarius. So it's a double Aquarius chart. And
Mm.
Aquarius so Scorpio is seen as the zodiac sign of death and transformation. And Aquarius is seen as kind of like expect the unexpected, rebellious, unplanned for type of energy, which makes a lot of sense with respect to what happened at this time in history,
Mm-hmm.
aka his assassination. So, do you see that Aquarius sign there as well, Nichole? Do you see to the opposite end where it says DC and that's Leo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the descendant sign that speaks to a lot of past life type of energy. And the descendant is kind of what you give up in this lifetime in a way. You still have like those skill sets, but you kind of give that up in this lifetime. And it falls into the sign of Leo for his descendant. So I'm getting to this, guys. I think this sign of Leo in this instance is really interesting because it's symbolic of rulership, because Leo relates to leaders and kings and queens energy.
Mm.
And the US presidency in this case was the highest form of leadership that you could have in history at the time when it was respected, whereas now, present day, it's not respected, in my opinion. And it's also kind of like symbolic in the sense of it's representative of the old ways that wanted to keep the status quo at the time by killing him because he was so innovative and so forward thinking. They were seen as like gods, literal gods at the time, just because of what they represented at that time. So, big three most important parts in the chart: the sun. So, we talked a little bit about this already. He died under a Scorpio sun, which is 29 degrees. And it's interesting because you see that that sun doesn't have any lines to any other planets, which means it's unaspected in the chart. And that means that is of dominance. So that sun, especially at the degree that it's at, is going to have profound influence for whatever is going on and whatever it symbolically means within the chart. And because it's in the sign of Scorpio, it's linked to the planet Pluto, which is the planet of death.
Oh.
So, this would be one of the key indicators where I'd be like, hey, if you were a personal figure, be very careful on this day if I were looking forward and doing like a transit chart. And I had a really similar sense of awareness when retrospectively, because obviously I didn't have a reason to look at this beforehand, but do you recall when Alec Baldwin was recently involved with the shooting of the director? So he had a very, not the similar transit, but very similar energies going on in his chart, where I, as an astrologer, would have been like, you need to be very careful of the energy around this time because something bad, I would say bad in that instance, would happen. And that's exactly what happened to him when he was in that situation.
Interesting.
Yeah. So because the sun is at, you have a question?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Have you looked up his birth chart and compared it to JFK and compared it to his death chart? Like, have you looked up both and done a side by side and seen what they look like together?
No, but I knew you were going to ask me that, and I could do a synastry chart.
Well, if you knew I was going to ask you.
Because it was more work for me.
So you're like busy? You're like busy? You have like a job or something?
Yeah, I have
like a job in a business actually. Or what? Oh, what's that like?
Okay. So, okay. Do you remember when I said when you go down the rabbit hole of one sign, you come out the other? So, like if you go down the rabbit hole of a Cancer, okay, you're going to
come out of Capricorn. Yep.
Same goes for Scorpio. So, if you go down the rabbit hole of a Scorpio, what are you going to come out?
A Taurus.
Yay. Yay. Oh my gosh, she's on fire today, guys. I'm so proud.
100%. I want my gold star.
Gold star. I'll give you 2. Okay. So the sun was at 29 degrees. So this is where I was like, oh shit, this is like another, interesting placement that was not working in his favor.
So guys, she's looking at the 9th house. Just so I can follow along if anybody's confused the way I get. The 9th house, if you look up on the little round circle with a circle in the middle, right?
Yes.
29 correct. Right there.
Exactly. So the 9th house is opposite to the 3rd house. And you don't see it there. We should have turned this on. Right, it's hidden because you can go back because we're screen recording for YouTube. So if you scroll up a little bit, Nichole. And then you go press here? Chart selection. Yeah, press chart selection.
Oh, okay.
So for those listeners out there, we're turning on the fixed stars aspect and the asteroids aspect in a chart. Not very many astrologers work with it, but I do because it adds another layer of influence. And there's something crazy like 30,000 asteroids that exist in the sky, and so many of them are unaccounted for and what they mean. So that's why asteroid focused and specific astrologers are very sought after because they understand the influence. So can you scroll down? And then where it says additional objects, press that
Mm-hmm.
button.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so extend it and then scroll all the way down.
Common elements, you mean?
There's gonna go all the way down. There should be a star called Algol, ALGOL. Perfect.
Yep.
So
Found
select
it.
that.
Okay.
Okay, and then press show the chart. So this process, guys, can be followed for any asteroid that you're seeking. So same approach on astro.com. So when you look at show the chart,
Now there's something there. Okay.
it's going to extend. So do you see now on the screen where it has the sun? And then do you see where it has that planet in the third house? It's actually an asteroid, I'm sorry, Algol. Okay. So that Scorpio sun is considered opposing the star, the fixed star Algol. And Algol is referred to as the demon star in the sky,
Oh.
and it's associated
Is his
with
name
murder.
Damien?
I don't know, but I love that name. So Algol is associated with murder. And basically, anytime there's an opposition of sorts, so like, or an aspect, so in this case, the sun is opposing the star Algol, it's going to be heightened. So the sun in a chart casts light and influence, and it basically is a focal point for what is going on. And some aspects are better than others. Oppositions are not technically the best aspects by any means. So that combination of that Scorpio sun opposing that Algol fixed star, which represents murder, the demon star, was literally like one of those planetary transits that was not working in his favor.
I wonder, so that's right. We know he was murdered. And so
Mhm.
that's what is kind of highlighting. I wonder for people who are serial killers, like when we did Richard Ramirez, I don't think we had the
Ooh,
algal on, but I
Mhm.
wonder if there's any indication in those charts that they are a murderer versus someone who is being murdered.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, once you go down that rabbit hole of like, and also just familiarizing yourself with the thousands of different asteroids and what they mean, like it's it's crazy what comes up, and I would bet money that that would be the case. I would say yes.
Okay.
So,
And I wonder if this is in JFK's birth chart. Since this is his death chart, I wonder if this is in there too.
and you wonder if it was activated in his chart, because that's something that you would look at in the comparison chart in like a synastry chart, because that's the thing with respect to transits is you have these planets in your birth chart, right? These stars, asteroids, planets, and depending on what the sky is doing, they're activating those placements. And that's where the predictive element of astrology comes in. It's like, all right, you know, Uranus is going to be conjunct your fixed star Algol in your birth chart, depending on what house it's in. If it was in the 8th house, I'd be like, yo, that's like a rebirth. That's like a death transit. That is something you really want to pay attention to. And I'm not saying that's what was in Alec Baldwin's chart, but he had crazy combinations that were not working in his favor when he found himself in that really unfortunate, sad situation.
I wonder, since we're talking about JFK, oh my gosh, write this down because you need to do this too at some point. I wonder.
This is what
if,
happens.
No, I know,
She gives me work to do, guys.
But this is good. You guys are going to love this. I wonder if Marilyn Monroe's chart has this algol, right? Because there is the official story is she overdosed. However, there are conspiracy theories around the Kennedys are involved. There's a lot of people that are involved that suggest that she was murdered. So I wonder for people where there is that, oh, well, the official report is they overdose. But for example, Kurt Cobain, The
That's sad.
story is that he took his own life. However, there are some thoughts that maybe he was murdered and that it was staged to look like he took his own life. So for people like that, I wonder if there's anything in the chart to show murder.
Kurt was part of the 27 Club too, right?
Mhm.
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's certain placements that Marilyn had. I don't know about the death part, but she had Neptune in the first house, which is what made her kind of like that shapeshifter, siren, lure
Mhm.
you in type of energy. And was literally profound looking at her and just how smart and intelligent
Mhm.
she was, and people never really gave her that credit. But I remember there being a report recently, unrelated but kind of related, where Nicki Minaj was like, Marilyn Monroe is calling to me from the other side, like she wants me to be with her on the other side. I'm like, that's fucking nuts, but also like this world's kind of nuts in the spiritual world. I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't put it past her by any means if she really believed that.
Anyway, okay, so back to the chart, but we definitely need to look at Marilyn Monroe's to see if she has any of these things in there, especially because she does have these associations with the Kennedys, and we plan on talking about her birth chart and maybe her death chart at some point. So
Hmm.
keep that in mind.
Okay, so moving on to the second um, important placement in a death chart, which is the moon. So you pointed out that the moon is in the 12th house and
Mhm.
it's in the sign of Aquarius, as is the rising sign, which is the one we're going to get to after. And do you see that that moon is sitting on top of that other planet, which is Saturn?
Okay.
Okay. So Saturn is the conventional ruler of the sign Aquarius. And the modern day ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. So, in astrology, depending on the signs that you're looking at, you're looking to their rulership and the rulers. And depending on what those rulers are doing in the sky, that adds another layer of almost like detectiveness and analysis when looking at a chart. So, in this chart, in the seventh house, you
Mhm.
see that planet, the little P, that's Pluto, and the one right beneath it, that's Uranus.
Mm.
So we're looking at what Uranus is doing as well, because the moon is the second most important planetary placement in a death chart. So you're looking to see what sign that moon fell into, which is Uranus, but you're looking at it both its conventional and unconventional and traditional rulers. And in this case, that would be Saturn for the old school ruler, and in the new age would be Uranus's ruler, which is the ruler.
I have a
So
dumb question.
it's not a
Sorry,
dumb
there are
question.
no dumb questions. There
No.
are just things that I feel like I probably should know. Maybe I don't know. Okay. Does each sign have a set ruling planet?
Yes.
And do they change or they're set? They're always that.
It depends on if you're looking at it from a traditional perspective or a conventional perspective. So, for example, old school, Saturn used to rule Aquarius. New school, it's Uranus. Um, you're looking at Libra. So Venus rules Libra. That's pretty straightforward.
Mm.
You're looking at, and she rules Taurus too. So Venus is ruling Libra and Taurus. I'm doing this off the top of my
Mm.
head, guys. So I'm winging it. I should have these memorized, but I don't.
What rules Cancer?
The moon.
Oh, so it's not just planets. It can be.
Yeah. So the moon and the sun are luminaries. So they're not considered planets, but they're referred to as luminaries.
Oh my God, are we special?
We're special. Yeah. We're considered the mother of the zodiac. But also we're kind of messed up because that's what makes us so moody, because the moon changes signs every 2 to 3 days. So if you're a
So do
Cancer,
we.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why we're moody as fuck. So, but also
Oh,
Cancers,
undiagnosed bipolar. Yeah.
kind of, yeah. So
Mhm.
Cancers, usually your life looks very different every 2 to 3 years because of the rulership rules in the sky of these planets. So, for example, if you are a Capricorn, so Saturn Saturn takes 2 to 3 years to change through a sign. Uranus is about 7, depending on retrogrades. But if you're like a Capricorn, if you are a Capricorn, you can kind of guarantee that your life's going to look different every 2 to 3 years as well. And if
Mm.
not, then definitely 7. So there, sun signs, by the way. I want to refer to that. It's very much sun signs.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry, you
so
can go back. I was just wondering
okay,
that.
I think in the show notes, I'm going to put the rulership of the signs and the planets as well.
I think you should make that content. I was thinking she should do this for your you should do it for your Agua page.
I was just thinking, I'm like, so many people know this, but also like I'm taking an educational stance. So I'm like, do people really need to know
No,
this, or is
people
this like
don't know this.
redundant?
You think a lot of people know it,
I
but
do, yeah.
people don't know it.
Yeah. In my head, I'm like, people just know this. Like, why am I
No,
going to
they
speak to
don't.
it? But anyways, thank you for that. I will do that. Okay. So Uranus is in the 7th house. So the 7th house, Nichole, represents contracts. It represents business. It represents marriage. It represents divorce. And because it represents contracts, any type, spiritual, written, et cetera, Uranus is the planet of expecting the unexpected. It's considered the rebel of the zodiac.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes you question from an analytical standpoint if this assassination, depending on what was going on in the sky, because the moon activated the sign of like the part of Aquarius in his chart, it makes you wonder if it was contractually planned out by his soul, like on a spiritual level, that he was going to like, all right, this is my like exit point, I'm done kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or if this was also had like that planned energy, because the 7th house, again, is contracts. Contracts typically take time to be planned. But those placements in the 12th, the 12th house, because he has his moon and his Saturn there, are hidden enemies. It's also the house of like I think it's a house of assassination as well. It's also the house of the underworld. So is the 8th. The 8th is very much underworld energy, but so is the 12th. The 8th is a little bit more planned. The 12th is kind of like you don't really kind of get like it's not expected, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of volatile placements between the 12th, this 8th where his sun was at, and the 7th with Uranus.
Have we already gone into the 10th?
No.
Because before we started recording and we pulled it up, I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot going on right there next to his midheaven, which I didn't know at the time was the 10th house. There's a lot happening there.
Yeah, I'm going to get there. I wanted to add one more point.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see that moon again in the 12th house? So anytime I look at a natal chart, it obviously depends on what the other planets are doing. It also depends on the aspects. But when the moon is in the 12th house, that means it's an ending of sorts. And it's also an emotional placement. And this whole assassination was very much an emotional shock to the nation.
It was the end of Camelot, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Another thing,
coined that.
when I see the moon in the 12th house, I'm like, oh, like for a natal chart. So like for, someone's like birth chart, I'm like, oh, there's a good chance they're probably not reincarnating on Earth. Granted, that does depend on what the other pieces of the chart are doing. But usually 12th house means like reincarnation may not happen again. This is a death chart, so it's different. But if I was looking at a natal chart, I'd have that perspective.
Okay. Well, I just thought of something.
I think I know what you're thinking about.
Kristen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a death chart, remember? So this was like, oh, that's not his natal moon placement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Carry on.
Okay. So again, the 12th house is unseen. The 8th house is that underworld energy, but I just wanted to make that clear that both are very similar. So also 4th, 8th, and 12th. So another little piece I would like to point out. He has nothing in the death chart, he has nothing in the 4th house. But when you have planetary placements in the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th houses, Usually you're psychic as fuck. And
He doesn't have anything in the 6th house either.
when it's open, guys, it's typically like at least in the death chart, we're not looking at his birth chart, but in open houses in a chart, it typically means that like you've already cleared out the karma in those respective areas of life and whatever themes are associated with that respective house in a previous lifetime, and you're not necessarily concerned with that in this lifetime.
Okay.
So now we're going to look at the part that you were curious about, which is the 10th house, and that's all that Sag energy. So Sagittarius is linked to the planet Jupiter, and Jupiter is the teacher of the zodiac. It's kind of like the leader in a way. But anytime that MC falls into Sagittarius, that means that's a very public facing individual, public facing company. It's a business chart, public facing event. And that's exactly what this was. So that trio, so working from right to left, that's Mercury at number 9. That's Mars at 20, and that's Venus at 21, if I'm looking at that correctly. And they were all in the sign of Sagittarius, which is the midheaven, right? So the midheaven's where the world meets you. And that's the most public facing. So like I'm always saying in business charts, right? Look at the midheaven of your business, because that's how you're going to want to brand your business. And the themes, the influences, the aspects respective to that sign. In this instance, because it's in Sag and that's very much a public facing leadership type of energy, we know that this was an extremely pivotal, almost moment in history that will never be forgotten. I mean, fuck, we're talking about this 60 years later, right? So because Sagittarius is ruled by the gas planet Jupiter is the planet that blows shit up, whether it's good or bad. You see like how big of an event this was. So that's where that analytical relation of Jupiter being the gas planet and blowing things up and this being such a public facing event comes through. Okay, so that means you're also going to look at the planet that it's associated with. So do you see that Sag there in the 10th? And then if you go to number 2, the second house, that's where the planet Jupiter's at under the sign of Aries, the little V. So do you see that Mercury making what's called a trine to Jupiter? Technically, all are considered to have made a trine because they're close enough in what's called a conjunction. I don't know what that means. So a trine is a 120-degree angle. So it's that blue line there between the 10th and the 9th. Yeah. So theoretically, because that Jupiter in the second house is trining all of those planets in the 10th house, the Mercury specifically, the Mars and the Venus, and it's under fire signs. She's working, guys. I can see her trying to figure it out.
No, I'm just trying to I'm just trying to follow along the trine. So that's the blue line.
Yep.
Okay. Because I see the blue line's making a point in Aries.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
the
little V. The little V.
Yep.
Okay. And then the blue line goes up through
Mercury.
the first house. House 1.
Passes through. Just
passes through that. And then does it trine again? Does it make a little point? No, maybe that's not a trine, but it makes another little point in the 12th house.
It does. It's not a trine. That one's a sextile. So that's 2 signs over. But yes, you're correct. It's making a relationship to that Saturn. And that Saturn in the 12th house is a very karmic placement.
Okay.
So
because it's it's like a triangle, right? It's like a tilted triangle kind of. I was just trying to see where it was going.
That's actually a really great observation. So the point I was making, where that Jupiter's, do you see that's sitting at 9 degrees? And then it's making that blue line in the 10th house to the Mercury, which is also at 9 degrees. That's an exact trine. So, and usually when anything falls into a fire sign, that represents the energy of getting shit done. So that's the other point I wanted to make to this assassination death chart, is that someone carrying something out on this day was going to be successful because 1, it's get shit done energy, and 2, it was influenced by the planet of Jupiter, which is blowing shit up quite literally, because That's literally how he died. So,
Interesting.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you really wanted to put it one way or another, like it was going to be a successful execution. And then this Saturn, because it's making that relationship from that Mercury to that Saturn in the 12th house in Aquarius, so the 10th to the 12th, Saturn in the 12th indicates a sadness of sorts as well. And that makes a lot of sense with respect to like this powerful man who
And
opposed
people
the
were
status quo.
crying, which is crazy. I mean, I think about it right now, and I mean, if any president since I've been alive have been murdered, I don't think I would be sad. Like, not that I wouldn't be sad. I don't think I would have that reaction that people had, right? Where you saw people when you see old footage, like crying and bawling. Like, I don't think I would have, I don't think I
I,
could feel that for any president.
I think back to that and I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if after that event is when the cars with the bulletproof technology were put into place,
Yeah.
because that's what brought it on, right?
Well, he was supposed to have the bubble over the car, but he didn't want to. And I think I read though that
Oh.
the bubble wouldn't even have been able to um what word am I thinking? It would have still penetrated through the bubble
Mm-hmm.
anyway. Mm-hmm.
So the other placement that I want to look at, so we talked about the 7th house, where that's the house of contracts. And we know that Uranus is there, but we also know Pluto, the planet of death, is there in the house of contracts too, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you go down the tunnel of a Virgo, what are you coming out as, Nichole?
Oh, I know this. Hold on. Virgo is in September.
Yeah, August, September.
So is it going to be an Aquarius or a Pisces?
Pisces, good job.
Pisces. Okay.
Yeah. So another way you can look at that too, Nichole, is like you look at the Virgo, then just look directly opposite and see what sign it's in, and that's Pisces. Okay, so do you see the same idea? So you go down the rabbit hole of a Virgo, you're coming out of Pisces, and on the chart, you're looking at the axes. So this is the Virgo in the 7th. You just look to the opposite sign, and that's going to be basically the sign that you're looking to for that, and that's Pisces.
I just don't know all the
So opposite of
symbols.
Virgo's Pisces, opposite of,
Like,
it's so funny. I had a class, when was it? It was like maybe 2 years ago at this point, when I was learning from my teachers. And I was like, you guys, I was today years old when I realized that the fire signs are in red, and the green are earth, and then the orange are
oh,
air, and the blue, yeah, are water. And they were like, Gab, we've been teaching this for 20 years and we just realized this. And I was like, I feel so smart.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, the only one that I know is the Cancer.
Of course.
And so that's how I'm trying to figure them out,
And they go
just
in
by
order.
going in order. Right. So I'm just
Yeah.
trying to do it in order to figure it out.
Yeah. So I wanted to speak to the placements in the 7th house of contracts. We talked about the Pluto, the planet of death, being there.
Mm-hmm.
But then also opposite that in Pisces is his Chiron. Chiron is not a planet, but it's a very significant placement in a chart. And Chiron is an asteroid. It's
That's
like
the
a little,
K, right?
it looks like a key almost, if you look
Oh,
at it.
yeah. It does look like a
Yeah,
key. It's
it's a
like a
K and a
K with
key.
a zero under it, or not a zero,
hmm
an oval. But yeah, it does look
Yeah,
like a key if you, like a crooked key.
exactly. So Chiron in a chart has a couple of different meanings. It signifies what your soul really came to heal in this lifetime. Typically, it relates to significant events that relate to what your soul came to heal. So Chiron's a very critical piece in your chart, and everyone has one.
And for
And
people that are watching, it's in the first house.
it's in the
So
first house, correct?
if you go across that little
So
K
the first
next to the
house,
blue.
yes, represents the essence of your soul. It's front facing, it's the energy of what people see upon meeting you. So you could very much be like a Scorpio sun, but if your first house is Leo, people are going to feel Leo energy from you, right?
Mm.
So and also this is another point to make, guys, the different houses, as do the different signs, they all represent and relate to different body parts in the human system.
Oh.
The first house represents the head. So
Oh, I don't
the
like
fact
that.
well, the fact that he was literally wounded in the head in his chart on the death chart speaks to the fact that this was another one of those pieces in the death chart that was like, oh shit, this was going to be executed, and he was going to die
Oh.
via something happening to his head.
Oh, okay.
And this is the magic of astrology, guys. This is how, not that this instance was magical, but this is how it all works and pieces together once you really go down and you understand the signs, the symbols, the placements, the aspects, and the degrees. What are your thoughts on that? As he was literally shot in his head.
I don't
And
like that.
isn't that wild? It's like you can't
Mhm,
avoid it. So I'm like,
mhm,
shit, was this
mhm.
fated? Was this something his soul signed up to do? Like
Oof.
that kind of, that's the part where I'm just like, it gets me thinking, basically.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's what I have for you.
Oh, the head done.
The head, done. Shot in the head. God rest
Mm.
his soul.
Okay, I'm looking at the chart right now and I don't think we covered it, but just out of curiosity. So in the 5th house,
Mm-hmm.
next to the Cancer symbol,
Mm-hmm.
what is that?
So everyone has this in their chart too. It's called the North Node. And the North
Mm.
Node is where your soul wants to go in this lifetime.
So where
That's
did his soul
very
want to go?
well in the death chart.
Where would the death
The
chart?
5th house represents creativity, sex, children, romance, and it falls into the sign of Cancer. So I wouldn't look to his death chart per se to see what
Mm.
exactly his soul wanted to do. I would look to his birth chart. So I would say that, but
What do you think it means here?
mm, it's interesting because the 5th house is also like literature, publication. It represents politics. It represents star qualities. So I think that this speaks to the fact that like his death was going to be something that was spoken about for years to come, both in
60
printed
years
form.
later, we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also it falls in the sign of Cancer. Remember, the United States is a
Oh, it's a
Cancer.
fucking Cancer. Moody
So
ass.
it's in relation
Okay.
to just like our history. And that's kind of like where there's a lot of different ways. And that's the thing about astrology. There's a lot of different ways that you can analyze and look into it. But for me, it looks something related to the country, its history, and his legacy being literally written about 60 years later
Mm,
and forward.
interesting. Okay. It's really interesting. I would have loved to have had his birth chart next to his death chart.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been really cool to see what the
What did you
difference
say
is.
his big three were again? He was a Gemini,
Oh, fuck.
and
Hold on.
he was a Gemini
He was a
Virgo moon.
Gemini sun, Virgo
Mm-hmm.
moon, Libra rising, and Cancer midheaven. It says his dominants are Neptune, Venus, and Saturn. It says houses 8, 10, and 11. Air, earth,
8, 10, 11.
fixed.
8, 10, 11. So without making it too complex, you guys, and maybe we could do a follow-up episode of just what like that synastry chart would be, which is looking quite literally like at his birth chart and his death chart together. Or we could do a composite chart, which is combining the planetary energies of both those days and events of his birth and his death into one. So you could analyze what that really looked like on an energetic level. What I'm just her telling me what the big three are and seeing where it would fall within his death chart. It makes sense that one we're talking about this 60 years later because it's a karmic cycle ruled by Saturn, because Saturn takes 30 years to make a full transit around the sun. But also the fact that we're talking about this, which I just realized right now to Nichole, because he did have Libra very active in his birth chart.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're under the Libra Aries new set of eclipses. So I would not be surprised if we see something reoccurring in the news about him specifically, or if we had information released about his death over the next 14
Well,
months because of,
something just came out recently.
oh, like what?
There was one of the Secret Service agents that was assigned to work with Jackie Kennedy talked about a bullet that he
Mm.
found um at the hospital, I think, like an almost intact bullet. So anyways, he just wrote this book that just came out not that long ago.
Well, what I will say is because Libra was influential in his birth chart, and we're starting a new eclipse cycle. We just started it with the Aries Libra axis. There's going to be some type of new information that's going to come out between now, November 2023, to the end of 2024, because
Hmm.
this death chart is active for that type of influence based on what the nodes are doing in the sky and what these eclipses are doing as well.
His north node was in Capricorn. Does that mean
In what
anything?
house do you know?
In the shit, the third house.
Oh, yeah, that's community. So he was meant to be known in community, which makes
Hmm.
sense.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can't believe it's been, I mean, not that I was alive, but I can't believe it's been 60 years. Obviously, I'm not 60 years old. However, just the amount of discussion that it still gets to this day is kind of crazy,
And more to
right?
come. You heard it here
Mm-hmm.
first.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Miss Gabrielle.
So welcome. I hope you had fun. The first of many astrology, well, not first astrology episodes, but first of charts that we were going to look at together, I'm sure, in this type
We've
of
looked at one
detail
before.
on the show. Yeah, but we did this one differently. Like we went through it together. I think I went a little bit more slowly. You had a visual to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, I like having the visual because otherwise, I mean, a lot of it doesn't make sense to me anyway. But then when I can't see it, I'm like, I don't fucking know what she's saying. You're like speaking a foreign language to me. So having it there to look at was really helpful. So I think we should do that more often so other people can also maybe have it if they're watching it on YouTube or if they have it pulled up. So on social media.
Move on.
Well, apparently she has to like work or something. So we got to cut this. What's it like having a job? I don't remember.
That's not a bad thing. Just saying.
Well, stay tuned for the bonus, guys.
Until next time.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.